You know that feeling when your chest is tight, your breathing is shallow, and your energy to do things that you want or need to do is low, and your emotions flicker somewhere between anxious and numb? It's easy to chalk it up to stress or exhaustion, but what if the root isn't just what's going on in your head or your long to-do list, but the tension in your rib cage? Hi, I'm Alexis Wadeland, osteopath and co-founder of Blossoming Me and Healthy Learning Lounge. Last week we explored the rib cage as the bridge between protective structure and flexible movement that signals and affects the nervous system regulation. Today we're looking into how this seemingly simple part of our body affects emotions, energy, and social connection. If you've ever felt off but couldn't quite name why, this might hold the key. Let's start with a simple cycle that many of us are stuck in without even realizing it. Rib cage reduced mobility, poor breathing, chronic nervous system stress. When your rib cage loses its ease of mobility due to posture, pain, trauma, or emotional bracing, your breath gets shallow. Instead of that full diaphragmatic breathing, you rely on upper chest or neck muscles to breathe. And this sends a constant signal to our nervous system that something just isn't right. It's like an internal alarm bell that never fully shuts back off. If this altered mobility of the rib cage and breathing continues, this perpetuates chronic stress, where the sympathetic nervous system is chronically activated, keeping you in an unhealthy fight or flight state where your heart rate and blood pressure will be raised. This can lead to or be part of cardiovascular disease and other things. If the rib cage dysfunction is combined with specific strains in your neck at the base of your head, this can send your nervous system into a dorsal vagal nerve dominant state. And here, the body goes into a more depressive nervous system state, which can present as lethargy, procrastination, lack of motivation, and inability to concentrate. Blood pressure that risks being too low, a lack of feeling or a sense of detachment and numbness, and even full-blown depression. This too is a state of stress, where the body is unable to perform the actions that allow us to thrive. However, it's not the traditional state of stress. In fact, it could be identified as burnout, adrenal fatigue, or other states that have traditionally been seen as what happens when the body can no longer compensate for the persistent raised stress and associated cortisol levels. However, it's not just stress, and it might not be the body's lack of ability to compensate either, but a specific nervous system response that is actually aimed at protecting you. If you were in a place where a predator was after you and there was no way to run and fight or nowhere to hide, your reaction might be to play dead in the hope that the predator may not notice you or lose interest, that sort of thing. In this state, your body is stuck in basic survival. But seemingly contradictingly, it feels like it's actively working against you, not allowing you to perform even the most basic tasks of thinking clearly enough to make an important decision. You're stuck in a state of paralysis, lethargy, apathy, even though it's not where you want to be. In order to heal, first your body needs to return to a state where it feels safe. To really get this, we need to zoom in to the polyvagal theory, which helps us to explain why some days we feel open, engaged, and energized, and other days we're stuck in overwhelm and shut down, or spiral into agitation and anxiety. In the polyvagal theory, the autonomic nervous system is broken down into three main parts, unlike the traditional theory, which only focuses on two parts. The ventral vagus, or front branch of the vagus nerve, supports social engagement, a sense of safety, and that alert, energized, calm feeling that you may associate with being in the flow, where things and actions and thoughts just seem to flow freely and effectively. It needs to be active and dominant for us to feel connected to ourselves, to others, and to feel socially comfortable, where we're able to make clear facial expressions and identify them, vocalize intonation, and identify those subtle verbal and visual cues in others. When we're around those that we feel safe with and close to, it can in fact be activated. This is an important part of why having a trusted and safe network of support is so important for our health and our mental health. The dorsal vagus, or the back branch of the vagus nerve, kicks us into overwhelm and certain types of fear that brings us to a state of shutdown or withdrawal, where we may feel apathy and lethargy, as well as procrastination and brain fog and a disconnection from the world and others, and that almost numb sensation. In this state, it's near impossible to have the energy to do, well, pretty much anything. The sympathetic chain is a group of spinal nerves that create a chain or cluster of nerve fibers all the way down the thoracic spine next to the ribs at the back. This activates when we perceive danger, a threat to our survival that requires us to mobilize, to run, or to fight. It puts us in a high alert state, fast heart rate, shallow breathing, tight muscles, and when we don't directly have anything to run from or fight, it can present as agitation and an inability to sit still, or as aggression. And when we don't directly have anything to run from or to fight, it can present as agitation and inability to sit still, as all that energy has to be released and needs to go somewhere. In addition, neither of these options involves steady, logical reasoning, thinking, or decision making. When we think disturbing thoughts and create a sense of fear and overwhelm, even if we don't realize it, our body will then respond. Our neck muscles tense, and this results in a reflex twist of those upper cervical vertebrae. This, in combination with the altered breathing pattern and or rib restrictions, activates the dorsal vagus nerve and switches off the ventral branch of the vagus nerve, sending us into a less social and lowered nervous system state. When we become startled or our rib cage does not function for long periods of time, our spinal sympathetic chain will be activated, which also switches off our ventral vagus nerve. This sends us into a sympathetic nervous system state traditionally identified as stress. It can be unclear which state, the dorsal vagus or the sympathetics, that any given stressful situation might activate. But two things are certain. One, the ventral branch of the vagus nerve will become switched off. And two, the restrictions of the rib cage will be part of the picture. Whether the rib cage restriction was part of what allowed the stress state to begin, or the stressful state, emotion, situation, or thought is what caused the rib cage restriction. It will be present either way, and in order to fully allow a complete return to engagement where mental clarity, ease of learning, proper functioning of digestion and reproductive system, energy levels, and our body's healing ability, functioning of the rib cage needs to be returned. If the rib cage quickly readjusts and moves unrestricted again, then the stress response, be it a freeze-type dorsal response or the fight-flight response of the sympathetics, can return to the ventral vagus state quite easily. However, if the rib cage stays restricted, it's difficult and sometimes impossible for the nervous system to return back to this ventral dominant state. How does the rib cage participate? On the floor of the rib cage sits the diaphragm, which communicates directly with the vagus nerve. If the rib cage is tight or your breathing is shallow, the rib cage can't engage, and so it doesn't stimulate the ventral branch of the vagus nerve. And this in turn signals distress or danger to the brain and engages our stress responses. No safety signal equals reduced ability to connect with others equals stress, reduced cognition, altered energy, either low mood, overwhelm, depression, and shutdown, or irritability, agitation, acting on impulse, and anxiety. Here's what it can look like when the nervous system is stuck in a loop of stress or shutdown because of chronic rib cage tension. Number 1, anxiety or panic. You feel unable to breathe fully. You're on edge. You may feel stuck in your own body. You can't sit still, like you have to be on the go all the time, even if there's nothing that you have to do. 2, emotional. It can feel like emotional turmoil that is hard to make sense of, a discomfort in your own body that you just can't get away from, or even an inability to make sense of who you actually are right now. 3, a type of paralysis and withdrawal, a depressive state. You could notice an absence of feeling, a sense of disconnection from joy and from others, even from yourself. This would be a classic dorsal kind of situation. 4, fatigue and brain fog. When your nervous system is fried, your energy tanks. your brain function, especially those higher levels of cognition, they can't function well, leaving you unable to make even the simplest decisions, unable to problem solve, unable to remember things that you normally would. You suffer from that deep bone tiredness and lethargy where you just can't seem to pull yourself up despite your intense urge to do so. Poor breathing means less oxygen to the brain, less vitality in your cells, and more effort just to get through the day. 5, social withdrawal. That sense where you just can't connect, you just can't face being with those people, even if they're your friends. Your nervous system is in such a state of confusion or overload that the energy required to connect in any meaningful way, even to people that you love, even with those that you really enjoy spending time with, is just too much to even consider. That's your nervous system shut down, down-regulating, shifting away from engagement to protect itself. So here's the good news. The nervous system isn't stuck forever. It's adaptable, and your posture and your breathing are 2 of the fastest ways that you can shift your state. When you adjust your posture by lifting your chest gently, letting your shoulders soften and drop a little bit down and back, and allow your breath to drop deeper into your body, you begin to send new signals to your brain. I am now safe. Just by taking a few moments to focus on your breathing, you can alter those signals that your brain is receiving. And this can reflexively improve your musculoskeletal system to improve your whole body, taking pressure off areas that may be in pain, aiding pain relief, and increasing ability to heal, as well as improving the tensions and movement of the rib cage, improving its function enough to reactivate the ventral branch of the vagus nerve and send you into an engaged state again, where learning, thinking, digestion, procreation, and healing are exponentially more possible. Simple vagus nerve toning practices. You don't need fancy tools or long meditations to start building your vagal tone. So here are just a few science-backed practices that you could play with. Breathing. Sit or stand comfortably. Imagine the base of your ribcage expanding with your inhale, side to side, front to back. Breathe in deeply, allowing your upper belly to expand first, and then all the way up through your chest. Hold this for a moment, and then slowly exhale through your mouth or nose, aiming to exhale a little longer than your inhalation breath. So you could aim to inhale for about 4 counts and exhale for 6 to 8 counts. This longer exhalation helps to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system response, i.e. help to activate your ventral branch of your vagus nerve. Repeat this breathing style for 4 to 5 breaths at least. You may notice your heart rate begins to slow as a result. See if you noticed a shift. Do you feel a little bit more grounded, relaxed, comfortable? Do you have a few less irritating thoughts going on? The next one is humming or chanting. The vagus nerve runs through our vocal cords. Humming stimulates this, and science is suggesting that this may even promote a sense of calm. Low tones are good to feel the vibration within your throat. You can even put your fingers there. Gentle upper cervical balancing. By allowing your cervical vertebrae to move correctly and ensuring that the traps and sternocleidomastoid muscles are not overengaged or tight, we can support a healthy, functioning social engagement system and an active ventral vagus nerve. Helping to reduce the tension in the suboccipital muscles can be simple and effective as a way to do this. It improves neck mobility by balancing the upper cervical vertebrae and helps to balance the tension in the neck muscles. So we do this by gently pushing under the ridge of our occipital bone. Feel your head. There's generally a ridge at the back here. You want to feel that ridge, and you want your fingers to be one just above and one just below. And you're doing that on both sides of your head. First of all, you hold your head with your left hand, and using the 2 fingers, one above and one below, on your right side, you're gently pushing softly into those muscles towards the middle of the head. You're only doing it to where you feel that there's a bit of resistance in those muscles, and then you're holding there for 60 seconds. If you notice that you get a deep breath, a yawn, a sigh, then that's the point where it's finished and you can continue on. Otherwise, hold for the 60 seconds. Then you're keeping your head held by your left hand, and now you're gently pulling your fingers out away from the midline of your head. Again, you're feeling that resistance in those muscles and just holding where you start to feel that resistance again for the 60 seconds, or when you notice that bigger breath, yawn, a tear in your eye. Once you've done the right side, then you hold your head with the left side and you use those two fingers, one above, one below, and you're pulling. First of all, you're going inwards. Again, you're holding for the 60 seconds or until you get the deep breath or the sigh or the yawn. And then you're going outwards again till you get the 60 seconds or that release sensation. And remember that you're not pushing in hard. You're just gently pushing and gently pulling. And you're just feeling for the tension and you're not aiming for any pain or real discomfort. Awareness is your superpower. The beauty of the body is that it is built for resilience. The ribcage, the breath, the nervous system, they're all listening to each other. When we move and breathe with intention, we can shift the chemistry of our brain, the tone of our thoughts, and the depth of our emotional experience. It isn't about fixing yourself. It's about listening to your body the way that you would your best friend, by being present and even curious and compassionate, and then do what feels right. Do you want to go a little bit deeper, starting with moving your rib cage? If you've enjoyed this video, then it's something for you, and you'll probably love my new Ribcage Reset mini course. It's a guided, accessible way to explore the connection between breath, posture, and the nervous system for health through gentle practices that you can do anywhere, anytime. Because sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from doing more. It comes from taking a moment to listen and to be present. So get ready for next week, where we dive into how the rib cage and breath can impact your organs, from your heart and heart rate and blood pressure to digestion and indigestion and more. We'll explore how the rib cage function supports vitality or contributes to chronic illness, and how restoring rib cage mobility can transform you from the inside out. Until then, try some intentional breathing. Keep noticing, and above all, be kind to your body. It's always there to help you.
So that's it for today. Did it raise any questions or aha moments? If so, I'd love to hear them, so please put those in the comments section. I love answering questions. I hope you found today useful. And if you know someone who could use this information, please share it. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Until next time, and in health, bye for now.